Good morning, everybody. Today is going to be a Seattle Mariners day because it's time for that 50 game check in. It's been a while since we've talked Mariners. Got to do it. Might make another video later today with some Seahawks stuff, but this is going to be the Mariners for now because we are approaching the third way point of the season. We are almost a third of the way through the season for these Seattle Mariners. And things are starting to take shape with the team, with the division, with the league, with everything. And we do face an uphill battle. The good news is, I think the schedule is going to get a little more reasonable from here on out. And this team has shown the ability to beat up on the really bad teams on their schedule. They've now gone 7-0 against Oakland. I think they took 2 or 3 from Detroit. Earlier this season, I think they swept another team that is really bad. So if they can eat against the really bad teams, and I mean really eat, like win pretty much all their games against those teams, then they have an opportunity to maybe pull this season out because there have been some things that have not gone according to plan. There have been some things that have really hampered this team. And the only way we're really going to be able to make it out of this with another playoff berth, which is ultimately the goal this year, that has to be the minimum goal, is you're going to have to beat up on these bad teams. And you're going to have to hope to a certain extent that you can win a few games against the right teams. Like, we need to start beating, like, in a couple days here, actually, we play the Yankees. Need to beat the Yankees because that's a team we're likely to be very, very close to in the wild card race at the end of the season. When we play a team like the Astros, got to beat the Astros. When we play the Angels, got to beat the Angels. These are the teams that we're going to be battling with for playoffs position at the end of the season in all likelihood. So, unfortunately, I mean, look, the team is trending in the right direction right now. They did a good job against Oakland these last 4 games. The next 3 games, they got Pittsburgh. They could win a couple of those games as well. Pittsburgh's not playing very well lately. Absolutely could beat Pittsburgh a few times here. But in order for this team to give themselves an opportunity to do something real this year, something substantial, the way I see it, they got to keep beating up on these bad teams. And they have the pitching to do it. And there are some signs of life on this offense. So I'm not counting them out. I'm not counting on a 15-game winning streak bailing us out again this year. But what I am going to count on, what I am going to lean on, what I am going to hang my hat on is this team's ability to beat the really bad teams, which they have done a really good job of for the most part so far this season. So that's got to be the saving grace. And there is some reason to believe maybe they could turn it up a little bit to the point where they're actually able to start beating even the good teams. The offense starting to kind of take shape here, starting to kind of snap into position. It's a slow and painful process. A lot of deep fly ball outs, a lot of warning track power, which is going to improve as the weather heats up. But it is starting to improve. Cal has had a pretty good couple of weeks here. He's now hitting well above average overall. Ty France is snapping out of his slump, and he's starting to actually have a little bit of a power surge. Crawford continues to. I don't know what's going on with that with Crawford right now, but he is useless in neutral situations. But when you need him, when there are runners on in scoring position, when there are 2 outs, when you need a run, he's coming through over and over and over again and is, in my opinion, earning his contract no problem. And that's not something I would have said about him at some points last season. Kelnick obviously still playing really, really well. Julio starting to snap out of it. Teoscar, it's still a fight, still a battle with Teoscar, but he is overall producing decently on offense. Tom Murphy kind of snapped out of it a little bit, and he's actually providing something at the plate. And somehow, some way, by some miracle fluke, we've been bailed out of the Colton Wong disaster by Jose Caballero. Caballero, just, we keep giving him reps, and he keeps proving that he's better than Colton Wong, that he's actually a good player. He's been legitimately good at the plate. Not really any kind of problem in the field. He's stealing bases for us. He's got a good batting eye. And suddenly you put it all together and you're like, we might have a real offense here. We might have a full slate of guys, at least a lineup's worth of guys who are playable. Like maybe Suarez has kind of hit the end of the line here. I don't know. I do think that he'll end up with a okay season at the end of the year when his home runs have had a chance to go up because of the marine layer going away, that whole business. But even if he ends up just being a little below average as a hitter, you can live with that. And you've got a full slate of guys. It's not as good as we were hoping because Haggerty's fallen off a cliff and Pollock's been useless, and obviously Colton Wong gives us nothing so far at the plate. Trammell's been hit or miss. I don't really know how to feel about Trammell right now, but I could see it snapping into place, but everything's just going to have to go perfectly. Crawford can't slump the way that he did at the end of the season last year. Suarez is going to have to start hitting for power when the weather warms up a little bit. Julio and France are both going to have to keep getting out of their slumps. So there is a path to this team being legitimately really good for the next 110 plus games. But it's unfortunately narrow because I'm starting to lose my faith in AJ Pollock figuring it out because he's gotten a decent number of reps now, and the things that he's always been really good at, he can't do anymore. It's staggering how quickly he fell off. And at this point, I think Wong is a kind of a sunk cost. I'm not even really thinking about him anymore, unfortunately. So there's not much of a room for error, but I can see it start to come together. And it's going to get to the point, I think, where eventually it's like, okay, we can survive a couple of dead spots in the lineup here because this guy's going through a bit of a surge. And we're going to have enough guys who can hit in the lineup to where it's at least manageable. So that's what I'm going to hang my hat on here. It's not going to be as pretty as we were hoping. It's frustrating that our two best hitters had to go through such a bad slump earlier this year because we wasted a lot of really good pitching efforts from this team. We did, because we just couldn't hit. The 1-0 game against Toronto, we had a really good start by Miller against Atlanta that went to waste. Had another 1-0 game against, what was it, Texas? It's been frustrating, and you don't like to see those kinds of starts go to waste because you don't know if those guys are going to be able to keep it up all year. But I think we're kind of starting to work our way into an area of respectability on offense. I can't bet on it yet, though. And that again, that's really all that can be said about this team right now. Like the starters, yeah, I mean, look, yeah, Marco's leaving some stuff to be desired. He's getting beat up a little bit here. He's also been a little bit unlucky. And overall, I think that what we are getting out of Marco as a number 5 pitcher is perfectly fine. I don't think there are that many number 5 pitchers in baseball who are noticeably better than Marco Gonzalez. Obviously, Castillo has not been the dominant guy that we were expecting to start the season, but dude's still been, I mean, are we really going to dump on a guy who's got a sub-3 ERA? On the whole, the big picture, the guy is still killing it. I mean, we all saw what Gilbert did last night, absolutely knocking him down. He's had some minor issues so far this season, but overall he's still a well above average pitcher. And you want to talk about bailouts. I was talking about Caballero earlier bailing us out of the Colton Wong disaster. How about Bryce Miller, who wasn't anywhere near this good in Double A? And suddenly he's like the greatest pitcher since the 1800s or something. So, yeah, the starting lineup has been incredible. The starting rotation, what am I going to do? Sit here and complain because, oh, Luis Castillo's had a couple of mediocre starts? No. No, I mean, even if you do want to put some stuff on him, then okay, he's your third best starting pitcher because Kirby's been a complete ace and Bryce Miller's been the greatest pitcher since the 1800s. So that stuff's great. And the bullpen, maybe still the best bullpen in baseball. I don't know. Sewell, Gott, Topa, Spear, Saucedo's been great so far for whatever that's worth. Small sample size, I know, but he's been pretty untouchable. When Murphy gets back, he's been really good so far this year overall. It's a great bullpen. So talking about things like that just seems like a waste. Now, don't get me wrong. We're not getting as much mileage as we should out of these pitchers because of mismanagement. where it seems like Service doesn't have a good feel for when he's supposed to take these guys out and when he's supposed to leave them out there, and it's cost us some games where he leaves a guy out there just a couple outs too long, or maybe he goes to the pen a little earlier than he needed to and wastes some potentially good innings, and he decides to put Matt Brash in the most important at bat, and Matt Brash, of course, has no control. So you're just sitting there wondering, why can't we use Matt Brash when we're up by 6 instead of when we're up by 1 or when the game is tied? But that's not really a problem with the bullpen, right? That's a problem with usage. That's a problem with situational managing. So even putting that on the pitching staff feels like a waste. Like even Matt Brash. Yeah, Matt Brash has problems. Don't get me wrong. He's still not pitching that badly so far this year. There have been some bad moments, and he's been well below average as far as pitchers go, but he's not getting gashed the way we've seen guys like Diego Castillo get gashed at times. He's just going through some rough patches right now. He's just letting control get away from him, but even blaming things on him right now feels like you're misplacing things. That being the case, Matt Brash is not the guy you should be putting out there when you're playing an extremely tight game. That's on the manager. So that's not a pitching problem either. The starters have been incredible so far this year. The bullpen's been way better than it had any right to be when we lose Munoz for basically the whole season so far. And it's really too bad that we're not utilizing it the way that we could. We've gotten so many good breaks here in the pitching staff, and the offense just hasn't quite risen to the occasion. But I feel like, and I may regret saying this, maybe I'll come back in 10 games and wish I hadn't said anything, that it's at least starting to take shape to where it will be an okay MLB offense that can win a lot of games with this staff. All right. See you guys later. Go Mariners. That's really all I have to say. It's like things are not changing that much. The offense needs to get it together because everything else on this team is solid. Even the defense. Like, early on in the season, we were having defensive problems, but Crawford's been a lot better lately. Cal's been better behind the plate lately. Colton Wong was making a lot of errors, but he's no longer a factor, basically, because I think he's just going to be the backup now. Yeah, Teoscar's misplayed a couple of balls, but he's actually made some really great plays to help make up for it. The defense seems to be pretty good. Maybe not as good as it was last year, but that's not the reason why we're losing games. That's not really the problem the way I see it. It's just we got to manage our pitchers a little bit better. We need to have a better feel for when to take somebody out versus when to leave them in. And the offense actually has to produce. So, like I said, we've got a collection of guys that seem like they are capable of being part of a decent offense right now. We just need them to actually play like it altogether, or at least most of them altogether, so we can stop leaving these runners on base. Okay. I can't think of really anything else to say with this team right now. To me, it's just really that simple, and I don't see it changing anytime soon. I love this rotation. It's got to be one of the best rotations in franchise history. I love this collection of bullpen pitchers. Just don't let it go to waste, because it's not going to be here forever.